Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Scannell Agenda. My name is Steve Scannell, and the date today is Monday, March 25th, 2019. This is show number 103, entitled The Scannell Amendment Makes Common Sense. I'll go through the Scannell Amendment. This goes back to an older show. And before I started this show, I had another show on Nantucket, but anyway, that was a long time ago. Before this TV show, I was working on this, I call it a Get Money Out Amendment. I'll just read it right through from top to bottom, and then we'll go through it point by point and see if you think it does make common sense or not. It can be improved on, that goes without saying. And you know, the bugs have to get worked out. But if it's essentially there right now, then we're looking good. Okay, the Scannell Amendment for a constitutional convention, and this is, of course, a constitutional amendment. For all levels of government, contributions to campaigns and ballot questions shall only be made by individual, non-compensated voters, and only within their own districts. And all policy officials and staff are prohibited from receiving any favors, jobs, or pay from any other than taxpayer-funded sources, unless the exception can reasonably be made by a board of ethics. So that's it. I counted the words the other day, and there weren't that many words, so it's pretty well, let's say, pared down, because me, especially this guy named Walter Haddock on the site, Dylan Radigan's site, Get Money Out, we worked on it pretty hard. And there were a lot of people chiming in with their complaints, like states' rights is always a complaint for anything you want to do. But before the ship sinks, I think we ought to make an effort to get back on an even keel. The United States of America is listing to port, and we are taking on water, let's just say. And is this the fix? Does it make common sense? It makes as much sense as it does to keep the boat floating, I think. All right, for all levels of government, and that means local, and it could even be sublocal. You could even have, you know, if you had, let's say, a water district within, if you had 2 fire districts within one local, so it means local. Municipalities would have to live with this. Towns and cities for all levels of government. So that's the first level. And can we say this is going to be difficult? It might be a little difficult because your family may live 2 or 3 counties away, and you've moved after you came out of law school, and you want your family's help. But there again, there is a stipulation about a board of ethics, and I think the local help that your folks in your family could lend you, you know, say you had a rich uncle, you wanted to help out, maybe the board of ethics would be the thing to do with the local. All right. Local, state offices, and then federal. So with the state offices, that again, we have to decide. Is it okay for us to go this route with our state folks along with the local? And I think it has to be. It has to be all 3. It has to be profound enough to be our new way. And I think this is good in that it is profound. profound enough to be a new way. of campaign support, ballot question support. Let's say you've got to clean up. Okay, anyone ever said that to you? No one's ever said that to me, but anyway, I've heard it said. You got to clean up. Clean up your act. For all levels of government. So that's local, state, and federal. That's the way it's got to be. That's common sense. We can't have a dueling system for local or local and state. It can't be just federal. It's got to be the whole ball of wax. This is how we operate our politics. That's my opinion. I think it's common sense. I think if you run the game theory, let's say, on this, you're going to have all kinds of trouble because people are going to come up from the ranks, let's say local to state to federal, and they're going to have baggage with them that we don't want them to have if we don't do this across the board, local, state, federal. Okay. For all levels of government, contributions to campaigns and ballot questions. So it's basically campaigns and ballot questions because they kind of fit in the same category. They're things we are voting on, voting for, voting against, or people we're voting for. Contributions to campaigns and ballot questions. So are we okay with that? So you can give money to your Republican Party, and they can put on local conventions, you know, spend more money locally on a state level. I think that'd be a good idea. And then joint conventions with local politicians of all the persuasions. I mean, the Republicans and Democrats should chip in. Independent people should chip in for that. We need more contact with each other. Seminars, if you want to call them, quarterly get-togethers by the political people. This is all the stuff we should be spending money on. So you should see your people up there presenting, and if they're good, you're going to say to them, look, you're good. You got to be running for this or that office. You're good. You got to get in there. You know, we're supporting you. Okay. So the money that we contribute to our parties, I'm a Republican, but I could, and I have contributed. I contributed $5 to Barack Obama once, years ago, while I was in Cambridge, hanging around at Harvard. That's another story. It's kind of a funny story. Shall only be made by individual non-compensated voters. Now you understand that if I pay you to pay somebody, you're compensated. So we don't want that. So it would be illegal for someone to pay someone else to pay someone else. In other words, it's got to be from you. It can't be from your Aunt Doris, even as lovely as she is, let's say. It's got to be your money. Well, that's a tough one, right? So there's going to be some holes in this, I think. But non-compensated voters means that I'm not going to be supported by the John Birch Society to run for office. By way of the Birch Society is going to give $100 to everybody at this party, and then they're going to, throw the money into a hat, and we can't have this. It's just more chicanery that we don't want. So non-compensated, and then of course voters. If you're not a voter, then you cannot, you're prohibited from contributing. You have to be a registered voter. And you have to contribute only within your own district for the ballot question or the office of, let's say, selectman or county commissioner on a local level. On a state level, it's your Senate and your representatives. And then, of course, on your federal level, that's presidential, and then the Senate and Congress. But your presidential, the district is nationwide, obviously. So only within your own district. Now, that's basically the first part. The second part is thusly, and all policy officials and staff are prohibited from receiving any favors, jobs, or pay from any other than taxpayer-funded sources. So that's going to be a problem because for many years I was a caregiver, and if I had ever been elected to go to Congress, let's say, then I would not have dispensed with my person I was caring for. I would have brought them along with me. And you keep doing that job, which is a labor of love more than money, and then you have you have that as an exception that would be easily reasonable, and that would be made by the Board of Ethics. Now, an unreasonable let's say income, I'm sure there might be a list. And I don't know if you're going to be able to get people to be so squeaky clean that this is not controversial to some extent. It would be. But let's say the most popular, one of the most popular and controversial would be the NRA, the National Rifle Association. So if they're giving me money, well, that might be a no-no. So the thing we got to get achieved here is we got to get our own people working for us, and we got to get them off the clock working for other people. They're punched in working for all these other people. And so that's that. We have to get these people working for us. Now, an analogy would be if you had your lawn maintenance guy out pulling weeds for your neighbor. And you're saying, hey, pull my weeds, fine, but not my neighbor's weeds. What are you doing? And I might say, well, these dandelions are going to be blowing over on your lawn. I just thought I'd come over and get them out and help this guy out while you're paying me. I'm over working for somebody else. So how would that work for you at home? If I'm doing all this work for your neighbor, let's say as your gardener, well, that wouldn't work, obviously. That's a simple analogy. These are called conflicts of interest, and I think we need to get right on that with this amendment. Now, the opposition to this amendment from liberals was that, we have to work on Citizens United. Citizens United has to go. So they had an easy way out. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people in both parties who are very comfortable with the way things are, with the status quo. And these are people who are probably encouraged to be in power, the status quo people. So if you had this amendment in place, you might get some better people. There's no might about it. You would get better people of service. Now, as an aside, there were a couple of guys running for Senate and Congress here in Massachusetts, and through Facebook, etc., I couldn't even get a discussion with them about fisheries. Now, I've worked all my life on fisheries, but they were obviously not comfortable going there for some reason. So I think you'll get people who can entertain the issues from a perspective of, here I am, I'm running for office, I want to work for you, and I'm not working for all these other people, and I haven't been pigeonholed on all these different issues. I'm flexible, but I'm working for you, and that is one inflexible point. See, that's what we want. We don't want the people working for everyone under the sun to be elected. We want only the people that are working for us. So this is common sense. It's as commonsensical as, do you want the guy who's pulling weeds for you in your yard to be over in the neighbor's yard pulling his weeds? No, you don't. That's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's it. That's common sense, that we need to get these people working for us and not in our neighbor's yard pulling their weeds. Basically, that's where we're at. So do you want to do that, or do you want to stew about Citizens United? Now, that was years ago, and I haven't heard anything about Citizens United. You know, I disagree with the ruling. Most people do. And this is the oligarchy or the money people that get involved, and they pull these stunts, and we're stuck with it. We're just stuck until and unless we get on the stick with cleaning that particular mess up. And the particular mess, of course, is dual loyalties. People are getting elected with multiple loyalties that are not directed towards the constituents that voted them in. All right. So I think, and this dovetails with other issues, like I have one reform that that mandates that the number of words in the regulations, in the federal regulations, be pared down, and that the staff of Congress get this job done, Congress and the Senate. You have staff members, hire a few extra, and I've got this done in increments so that you can take out a certain percentage of the words and you really end up simplifying a lot. I'd be curious to know how Donald Trump's doing as far as that goes, because you want to get rid of quantity and verbosity, but you don't necessarily want to get rid of quality. Regulations, like, you can't say, oh, all regulations have to go. That's ridiculous. Now, shifting gears, I'm going to talk about my little escapade with what I call the Marine Technologies Educational Program, and getting that set up. We're going to need, there's going to be different departments: fisheries, sailing, electronics, navigation and seamanship, rowing, all kinds of different marine technology things, working on the microscope, biology, fisheries management. There's 100 different things. So I have here, I'm putting together, and I've been talking it up with certain people about getting two class boats designed. I think one is significantly done, and that would be the Illyrian. I think a lot of people would agree that if we can maybe upscale that a little bit and put a door in the stern, this is a 26-foot sailboat, such door would open, and then we would have the ability to roll in one wheelchair maybe, and then that would serve us pretty well for the high school kids. And so, I mean, there are a lot of good designs. A lot of these that I like happen to be Harrishoff designs. So I've been talking to all the people that design and build Harrishoff boats. Went to a boat show on the Cape and talked to a bunch of people, talking it up, as they say. So I've got this project laid out for the boats themselves as interval ownership or fractional ownership. And so we might have yacht clubs sponsoring some time for these boats to be used by their yacht club. And that may be for 4 days. In other words, 4 4-day weekends plus 14 days plus weddings. And whatever we come up with, it's going to be individualized, I'm sure. And then you've got these boats being used, hopefully, if we have any scallops, being used for November and December scalloping, and this would be both sizes. I have it here at a 37-foot day sail. I call it the Sanford 37 because I don't know of anyone better to design than this guy Alfie Sanford, who I worked for at the Sanford Boat Company. But it would have to be a team. Education people, yacht club people, people who know how to sail really well and design and build really well. That's Alfie. So one aspect is hot molding that I am bringing to the table, because what I want to see is disabled people and kids and elderly, etc., being able to staple up or lay up a hull without any glue. In other words, it could be your basic 2x stock sawn down to 5/16 of an inch by 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, depending on what you want. And then stapled together, maybe with bronze staples. And now that would be lifted off the mold. It would be just wood stapled together. That would be lifted off the mold, and it would be put in a soak tank, let's say, to soak in the resin or plastic, whatever we're using. Could be high density polyethylene, but maybe that's a bad choice. I don't know. I don't know a lot about resins, but I know that the Ludders company had hot molded boats, and they are still around. I don't know about the decks, maybe aluminum decks with the plastic teak, and the parts might come together from loads of little boat shops. And I think we could be spitting out these boats very well. But the income is what you got to think about. What's the income revenue? What's that going to be? Well, some tax money, some programs for keeping people busy, such as clubhouse people. You know, in the old days, basket weaving was the big deal. So you'd weave up baskets, and building a hull is kind of like weaving a basket. It's just layering onto a mold. In this case, it would be stapling on, or you could use little nails or what have you, stapling the laminates onto the mold. When you're done, you pop it off and plasticize it. In other words, what you're doing is you're injecting the plastic using pressure into the wood. Now, you might say, oh, that's going to be too heavy. Well, if all the boats are the same weight, that's what you want in a class boat. They may all be a little too heavy, but these boats could be lasting for 100 years easy without much maintenance on these hulls, because it's just like a little bowl, a little salad bowl. You remember those old salad bowls? And new ones too. They're still making them. That would pressed wood with a resin. And so that would be like a woven wood resin bowl. Same thing. So the key is with these boats that you really want to get the kids in the boats. Now, when I was a kid, there was this harbor master named Sherald Smith, and once in a while he let me take out the town boat or go out and go help somebody. And I had my own boat, and my family had a boat. So I was on the water all the time as a kid, and so that's what we want. We want to get the kids out in the boats. And these little 26-foot boats, you want to get one kid in a boat, and the kid wants to be a regular sailor. Just go out sail by yourself, you know. There's nothing like it, probably. You know, I like being in my own boat, scalloping, so it must be nice just to be out sailing in a good boat that you love. So I'm designing dredge equipment, and I'm designing also eelgrass equipment in the last 5 minutes I've got here. So the dredge equipment that I design, it doesn't go like every design gets better and better. it goes like this. Every design is somewhat different, and I don't have a handle on what idea out of the 500 may be the single best idea. I can see most of them working, but most of them aren't really that good. Maybe some of them are good. I work on a ratio of 1 in 30 might be good. So I'm working on this one here. It's a stiletto eelgrass dredge, and it has eelgrass getting planted on one side, and then it's got a flexible 3-pipe, horizontal 3-pipe on the other side, which the dredge sits in, and this can dredge in 1 foot of water, and it can dredge an odd line, in other words, an S curve, or a C curve, or straight. And so it could also help to dredge channels easily. But it's specialized to eelgrass cultivation, so that's what I've been doing a lot of. So I'd like to be able to get all this stuff scanned and patented, then I can present it, then we can start working on all this stuff, I think. But I don't want to just give it away to the world, as I've mentioned. So this here is eelgrass. This is putting float balls in the grapey sod. That's the title. And the float ball you would pull or it would float away, and that would leave you a spot to plug your eelgrass into. So that would speed up the process. And this can be like a 5x5 pallet. You could load 32 simultaneously, load 32 little pots of eelgrass into one pallet with one machine. Bang, done. It wouldn't be necessarily handwork, but you'd have to start out with the handwork. So I'm looking at sizes, I'm looking at ice damage, I'm looking at inshore, offshore. Would they work inshore and offshore? That'd be nice to have the equipment, because if you've got windmills offshore with the wave generators, you want your eelgrass to be out there offshore, taking hold, so that 1 minute here, we're in a big countdown now, so that you can build that cranberry bog. Now what I mean by that is this. When you build a cranberry bog, let's say you have an income every year, so that's what the eelgrass represents. It represents the vine, and the scallops, that's the fruit of the vine of the eelgrass. So that's why it's critical to think in terms of cultivation, because we're going broke, and the codfish are missing, and the ocean is in deplorable condition, and we don't have any production people that are really known and famous for their work in fisheries, and it's a pathetic situation. All right, well, that's the Scannell Agenda. Thanks for suffering through another episode.